Good day everyone, my name is Adriana Beatrice and firstly I will be presenting the background of our study on young consumers' perception of buy now, pay later or BNPL services. Financial technology or fintech has significantly changed the way people make payments, especially among young consumers. One popular fintech innovation today is Bnpl, which allows consumers to buy product immediately and pay later in installments. This makes shopping more convenient and flexible. Generation Z are the main users of BNPLs because they are very familiar with mobile apps and digital payments. They use BNPL to manage their cash flow, to afford more expensive items, and to avoid paying a large amount of upfront. Their decisions are also influenced by friends, social media, and online promotions. However, although BNPL offers many benefits, it can also encourage impulsive spending, overspending, and financial risk, especially among young people who have limited financial knowledge. Now, moving to the problem statements. BNPL is widely used among the young consumers and university students, many of whom have limited and unstable income. The easy approval process and interest-free installment features may have created a false sense of affordability. As a result, students may have spent more than they can afford and struggle to manage their repayments. However, there is still limited research on how young Malaysians perceive BNPL and how it affects their financial behavior. Understanding these perceptions is important in order to promote responsible use of BNPL and better financial decision making. This study asks 4 questions which are: is there any relationship between perceived usefulness and continuance intention? Secondly, is there any relationship between perceived ease of use and continuance intention? Thirdly, is there any relationship between perceived risk and continuance intention? And lastly, is there any relationship between trust in buy now pay later providers and continuance intention? For the objectives, there are 4 objectives. This study aims to, firstly, to examine the relationship between perceived usefulness and continuance intention. Secondly, to examine the relationship between perceived ease of use and continuance intention. Thirdly, to examine the relationship between perceived of risk and continuance intention. And lastly is to examine the relationship between trust in buy now pay later providers and continuance intention.
1.5 Scope of study. This study examines perception, acceptance, and usage of BNPL among young consumers. Focus on digital native youth who actively use fintech platforms. Studies frequency of BNPL usage and types of purchases. First, fashion, electronic, food delivery, online shopping. Examines whether BNPL is used as a regular payment method and a temporary convenience tool. Third, analyze the impact of BNPL on purchasing behavior, which is impulsive buying, spending control, and decision making. Fourth, identifies factor influencing BNPL adoption, which is convenience and ease of use, cost and promotion, peer and social influence. Scope of study, it is limited to young consumers in Malaysia, excludes other financing methods, which is credit cards and loans, use self-reported questionnaire data, which may cause bias. 1.6 Significance of the study. It is to help understand BNPL usage among young Malaysians, contributes to knowledge on consumer behavior, financial decision making, fintech adoption. It also adds local Malaysian evidence to existing BNPL studies, and it gives benefits fintech firms and financial institutions by improving product design and encouraging responsible lending. Second, supports policy makers and regulators in creative consumer protecting rules, preventing excessive debt. Third, assists educators and institutions in designing financial literacy program, promoting responsible spending. 1.7 Definition of terms: buy now, pay later, BNPL. A payment method allowing installment payments with delayed full payment. Financial technology fintech. Second, digital technologies used to deliver financial service to young consumers, which is individuals aged 18 to 24 years using digital financial service. Impulsive buying behavior. Unplanned purchase influenced by emotion or promotions. Social influence, impact of peers, family, and social media on purchasing decision. 1.8 Organization of the project, which is Chapter 1 Introduction. We Tell about background, objective, scope, and significance. Chapter 2, literature review, which is full of Bnpl, fintech, consumer behavior, and research gaps. Chapter 3, research methodology, which is research design, sample, and data analysis. Chapter 4, data analysis and finding, which is result with tables and statistics. Chapter 5, conclusion and recommendation, which is summary, limitation, and suggestion for future research. Thank you.
In this section, I will present the overview of Buy Now Pay Later or BNPL, followed by the key factors, hypothesis, and the conceptual framework of this study. First, the overview of BNPL. BNPL allows consumers to purchase products immediately and pay later through installments. It is widely used in e-commerce and social commerce platforms and is especially popular among young consumers and students. BNPL offers a convenience and payment flexibility, but it may also encourage impulsive buying and normalize debt. Therefore, it is important to understand young consumers' perception of BNPL. Next is perceived usefulness. Perceived usefulness refers to how BNPL improves shopping experience and financial management. BNPL increases purchasing power and provides financial flexibility by allowing users to make purchases without immediate full repayment. As a result, perceived usefulness positively influences continuance intention to use BNPL. Now, moving on to perceived ease of use. Perceived ease of use refers to how easy BNPL services are to understand and use. BNPL systems are generally simple, user-friendly, and fast compared to traditional credit methods. This convenience encourages adoption and continued usage, thus positively influencing continuance intention. Next is perceived risk. Perceived risk refers to potential negative outcomes such as overspending, accumulated debt, late payment penalties, and hidden charge. Young consumers are more vulnerable to this risk. Higher perceived risk reduces the intention to continue using BNPL. Next, trust in BNPL providers. Trust refers to consumers' confidence in BNPL providers, including secure payment system, transparent fees, and clear repayment terms. Trust helps reduce perceived risk and increases continuance intention to use BNPL. For the hypothesis, four relationships are proposed. Perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use positively influence continuance intention. Perceived risk has a negative influence, while trust in BNPL providers has a positive influence on continuance intention. Lastly, the conceptual framework illustrates the relationships between the independent variable, which is perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, perceived risk and trust, and the dependent variable, which is continuance intention to use BNPL.
In this section, I will explain Chapter 3 research methodology of our study. This research focuses on young consumers' perception of Buy Now Pay Later services in Malaysia. The main objective is to understand how BNPL influences purchasing behavior and the intention to use installment payment services among young consumers. To ensure the findings are accurate and reliable, a structured research methodology was applied. For the research design, the study adopts a quantitative approach using a structured online survey. The study examines the relationship between the dependent variable, which is the intention to use BNPL, and several independent variables such as usefulness, ease of use, perceived risk, and trust. A descriptive design is used to identify patterns and trends in how young consumers engage with BNPL services such as Grab Pay Later and Shopee Pay Later. In terms of data collection, an online survey using Google Forms was distributed through social media platforms including WhatsApp, Telegram, and Instagram. A screening question ensured that only respondents who had used BNPL services in the past 6 months were included. The questionnaire uses a 5-point Likert scale and takes about 5 to 10 minutes to complete, which helps encourage honest and unbiased responses. The target population consists of young consumers in Malaysia aged between 18 to 45 years old. A total of 250 respondents were selected, as this sample size is sufficient to provide reliable results and allows comparison across different demographic groups.
For this study, we used a convenience sampling technique, a type of non-probability sampling due to time and cost constraints. The survey targeted young consumers aged 18 to 45 years old and was distributed via WhatsApp for ease of access and quick responses. The survey was hosted on Google Form and consisted of 3 sections: demographic, BNPL usage behavior, and independent variable. All variables are measured using a Likert scale, ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. The study included 1 dependent variable and 4 independent variables related to BNPL usage. All variables were measured using a 5-point Likert scale, and the data collected support quantitative analysis of BNPL usage behavior. The survey data was analyzed using statistical surveys such as Excel or SPSS. Descriptive statistics were used to summarize demographic data, while correlation and regression analyzed examining relationship between variables. The results are presented in table and card and interpreted in relation to the research objective and existing literature.
Good morning, my name is Nur Fazira binti Muhammad Fazri and I'll be explaining about Chapter 4, Data Analysis and Findings of the final report titled Perceptions of Buy Now Pay Later Among Young Adults Consumers. Based on the chart shown on the slides, the demographic analysis indicates that the majority of respondents are young adults, representing the largest age group in the sample. In terms of gender, female respondents form the majority, accounting for approximately 59.5% of the total participants. Regarding occupation status, most respondents are students, indicating that Bnpl services are widely used among individuals who may require flexible payments options due to limited or irregular income. With respect to education level, the majority of respondents hold a bachelor's degree, comprising approximately 37.7% of the sample, suggesting that BNPL usage is most common among individuals with tertiary educations. In terms of ethnicity, Bumiputra Sabah and Sarawak represent the largest ethnic group, accounting for approximately 48.6% of respondents. And finally, the regions of residence, a majority of respondents resides in East Malaysia, reflecting higher participations from Sabah and Sarawak in this study. Before proceeding with regressions analysis, we first confirm that our data meets the assumptions of normality. This ensures our statistical tests are valid. All key variables, the dependable variables which is continuance intentions to use BNPL, and 4 independent variables show skewness and kurtosis values within the acceptable range from +2 until -2, indicating asymmetrical distributions without extreme outliers. Furthermore, the Shapiro-Wilk task results were non-significant with all p-values greater than 0.05. This confirms that our data is normally distributed. Therefore, we can proceed confidently with the parametric regressions analysis as the normality assumptions is satisfied. Before analyzing relationship between the variables, we first ensure the reliability of our measurements. Scales we use Cronbach's alpha to assess the internal consistency of each construct, with a threshold of 0.7 is considered acceptable and values above 0.90 deemed excellence. As shown here, all 5 of our measure constructs, which is continuance, intentions to use BNPL, perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, perceived risk, and trust in BNPL providers, demonstrated Cronbach's alpha's values well above 0.90. Indicating excellent reliability for each scale. Furthermore, the overall reliability for all 25 items combined was 0.978, which is exceptionally high. This confirms that our survey items consistently measures what they were intended to measure, providing a strong and dependable foundations for the hypothesis testings that follows. The model explains about 76% of the variance with an R-squared of 0.759, indicating a strong explanatory power. Trust in BNPL providers is the strongest, most significant predictor with a beta of 0.546 and significance 0.001. Perceived usefulness also has significant positive effect with a beta of 0.369 with a significant value. However, perceived of ease and perceived risk are not statistically significant. Overall, the result highlights that trust and usefulness are the key drivers of users' intentions to continue using BNPL services.
Hi, my name is Azia binti Bali, and I will explain the discussion and conclusion for Chapter 5. In this chapter, I interpret the findings from Chapter 4 by connecting them with previous studies. I also discuss the implication of the results, highlight the limitation of the study, and suggest direction for future research, and finally summarize the overall contributions of this research. Continuance intention is driven by usefulness and trust in BNPL providers. Ease of use and risk are not significant, showing young users expect apps to be simple and accept risk as a part of digital finance. Theoretically, this study extends technology acceptance models by highlighting trust and risk normalization. Practically, BNPL providers should enhance usefulness, build transparency, and policymakers should strengthen regulation. Limitations include convenience sampling, self-reported bias, cross-sectional design, and possible overlap between variables. For recommendation, we should include additional variables such as financial literacy, income level, and regulatory awareness. Applying longitudinal should also, because it can research designed to examine trends in behavior over time. We also should conduct comparative studies across different age groups and countries. In conclusions, this study shows that the continuous intention of young Malaysian BNPL users is mainly driven by perceived usefulness and trust in providers. Ease of use and perceived risk do not significantly affect their decision to continue using BNPL. This research contributes to fintech literature by highlighting the importance of operational value and trust. The findings can guide BNPL providers and policymakers in promoting a more sustainable and responsible BNPL ecosystem in Malaysia. Thank you.